Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in this beautiful blue planet. Another day to celebrate life and us moving through this. Well, I guess bent hologram is the best way to put it. Other things have moved, other things have shifted, but what seems to be continuous is this control over humanity. Somewhere it's becoming easier, some other places it's becoming more difficult. If you haven't seen the two main things, actually three that are coming across right today, or actually August 1st, that begin. Purchases will now be part of your healthcare liability dossier / report. So it seems that healthcare companies are hooking up with and consolidating with the Maha movement inside the credit card genre of things, now also dovetailing into the whole stablecoin issuance, and that entire system is going to be one giant behemoth of information moving forward. Now, Palantir is in charge of and coordinating quite a bit of this. Another thing that we're seeing is the United Nations has officially adopted their new policies that are going to be working with very similarly worded language, government, NGOs, and private corporations, like they did during COVID, to stifle any type of dissent or those presenting information that goes against the 2030 agenda. I want to take a look at those tonight. It's not exclusively climate or digital IDs or anything. It encompasses all of the goals. If you speak out against any of their goals, their main job, like they did during COVID, is to silence that dissent using the same playbook that they had prior with the governments, with the NGOs, with the private companies. Freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. And they're going to go at it harder than they did during COVID. This whole plan is to remove monetization from those that speak out. And you have to realize those Agenda 2030 goals encompass every single facet that a human could live in. So I wanted to look at those tonight along with ransom. We've got a full list of which jobs are going to disappear first with AI, which ones are going to last the longest. It's just a newly issued report came out yesterday. And the CME gap is closed or $7 from closing. And I can explain a little more about that as the insider trading continues across the financial system, manipulating the cryptocurrency market to make sure that that gap that opened at a different price, because the regular markets are only open from the morning to the evening, but crypto trades 24/7. There's a gap sometimes from the pricing. When that opens and there's this gap that's not filled, they always smash the price down to fill in the gap, and then it runs back again. So we've just achieved that closing of insider trading on the gap. So many things to look at. And, the amount of earth disasters that we're seeing as well. If you haven't turned on the news, I'm sure somebody's told you word of mouth about how many in these incredible disasters are happening at the same time. So much to cover. Now, is all of this happening as a reflection of our global consciousness, knowing that there's a schism or some sort of unrest in global thought because the AI system is trying to control the physical human, and they're at the point where they understand where their mind is now bending the hologram, for a better term, and then this physical matrix is being then shaken literally at its core, that is our earth itself. So you have to wonder about the mystic traditions of mind, thought, creation, hologram, dimensionality, and a unified energy field. When enough humans put certain thoughts into it, it can actually be that, I've heard it in terms of the hundreds monkey effect, where it'll shift and reality will actually change into a new form. Will our earth respond to that? And is it now as an indicator that the human resonance field is at that point of unique change where everything flips in an instant, literally in an instant? So I'm glad you're with us tonight. Ransom, thanks for piggybacking along tonight. As always, bringing in the good thoughts. We've been throwing some messages back and forth, and your backdrop right there says it all. The tornadoes were incredible. The ice storms, the hail storms, the wind storms, the everything storms is just not biblical yet. Borderline opening the front page, I guess, shall we say.
That's why I hope just one person listened to us all winter while we harped about prepping, that there was going to be storms and floods and everything, like there always is. So hopefully, like, people really took it seriously this season, and it's not over yet. We got much more to go. And then it won't be long till we're seeing headlines about blizzards. Right now they're looking at New York flooding and all that. You've seen all the cars underwater and stuff. But I kind of wanted to jump right into this, what you were talking about right now. I harp a lot about AI, and it gets kind of, lost in the message, because there's just so much of it, of how much it's actually creeping into the human domain. And what I mean by the human domain is every aspect of everything we do, from shopping, eating, behavior, where you travel, when you travel, if you're allowed to travel. All of that's coming up, and it's all being unified into one system. Here's one right here. This is kind of what you were talking about. And we've been harping on this before this even came up, that we were just talking about it last week or the week before, that they're going to take all this data that they've been storing for decades now, and they're just going to share it amongst everybody. So that includes government, these tech executives, all the people in Silicon Valley, all their companies. They're all going to be exchanging and selling each other the data. And Yes, U.S. health officials, they're already meeting up with these people to see how they can share this data, and it's all over the place. It's literally how the AI is going to be able to take over is by
What about
learn.
HIPAA?
That doesn't apply to robots, man. That's only for people. You know what I mean? Like there's no privacy when it comes to metadata. It's all out there, and what can be inferred by metadata is more information than you think that you have secret in your medical file or your private financial stuff. There's enough metadata to figure all that out. So they don't really have to directly spy on things, although they do. They can just go around it using all of these massive amounts of data sharing that's going on in the background from what your TV pays attention to. It's funny because it was a joke a while back about you talking about something and then all the ads popping up ironically or coincidentally. Well, it's not a coincidence. We know it's not now. They are targeting you individually each. And I kind of wanted to
I
like
need a new HVAC unit here, high efficiency HVAC unit. Please send me some advertisements so I can choose which one to buy.
right. So
Save me the time of actually going to do the research online. Send me the ads. Thanks.
they got a lot of this stuff going on too. Like, check this out. Dodge builds AI tool to cut 50% of the federal regulations. Well, guess what that means? Regulations are run and operated by people. So the enforcement of specific regulations is going to be done by the AI. The AI is going to tell the few people that are going to still. This is the nightmare scenario. We already had a nightmare, out of control, ever growing government, and now it's an AI. It's not even the people anymore. Now it's a ever increasing exponential uh and it's going to be the reason that you can't afford to pay bills soon. And they're going to start giving you excuses that they've been trying to, latch on to forever. You're killing the planet, the fossil fuels, the everything. And watch,
No, wait,
just
no,
check out
Ransom, I would say it's already begun because according to the a message that I received today, your purchases will be part of your healthcare liability. So they're already tracking privately with credit card companies your purchases, and that metadata is being fed back to the insurance companies on what a risk you are because most people pay with debit card when they go in to do their grocery purchases. Generally $100,
right.
$200, $500, depending where you go. If you're at Sam's Club or if you're at a regular supermarket, they know you bought 5 bags of chips. They know you bought a 12 pack, a case. They know you bought a bottle of whiskey, you bought a bottle of vodka. Maybe you bought cigarettes, who knows? All that data is being crunched on your personal preferences of food choices, beverage choices, and things you're putting in your body that they then assess a risk to you in terms of your health later on. And it's already being done under our noses of the sharing, and that's not really the HIPAA or anything, but you can see how that, transference of information, the inferred reference of you're eating potato chips will cause you. What if you're just planning a picnic and hey, I'm the one who'll go get the chips and the hot dogs and everything for this big company outing. And you get caught buying 10 packs of hot dogs, 10 bags of potato chips, 3 cases of Coca-Cola. Now, just that alone would put you in wow, they're going to have a health risk there. Some things people are going to get just falsely accused of things by the diets or the purchases of things, and they're doing that now. So
Absolutely.
pay cash with your vices and use your credit cards to buy like the healthy diet and eating book and the supplements. Use your credit card to pay for that, but use cash to buy your vices, I guess, right?
Well, they still, even if you're using cash, they're going to scan your ID or look at your ID. And before long, they won't have to scan it. They're going to install a new system where it just pings off of your wallet and has your ID of what you bought. And I was thinking about that exact scenario the other day because I realized that my significant other buys my tobacco more often than I go in the store and buy tobacco. And I'm wondering, like in 15 years, they're going to tell her, hey, well, we're sorry, we can't pay for your medical insurance because you bought all of these packs of cigars for the last 10 years. And she's like, but I don't even smoke. Well, this says otherwise. But the whole front is a deception. The whole AI takeover is a complete deception on how it's going to work. Up front, they're trying to push all the helpful things that it can do, and blah blah blah. But it's really just a technocratic nightmare. And I just can go through a few articles and break down how bad it's already become. This one says Godfather of AI warns governments to collaborate before it's too late. Warning that AI is going to take over and whatever. The problem is governments. I just showed you on the other article. The governments are already collaborating. It's just not for the reason to protect us from the AI. It's on how to use the AI against us by collecting metadata, micromanaging people, all the way to like we'll get into, there's a big debate about what models wear what genes and what does that supposed to mean. But that's just another
Look how
excuse.
happy Zelensky looks there on the right.
Yeah, well, he's going to get happy. I mean, he's really happy about some stuff, and we'll get into that in a minute. Look, AI therapist goes haywire, urges users to go on killing sprees, and then you read the news and you look at the news and somebody went nuts over here and somebody went nuts over here, and and then that's the latest push for disarming or taking more rights away. All of these things can be reduced if you just replace key components with AI. Then there's no longer that person there to make a mistake. All the way from, the missing Malaysian flight, they can use that as an example. There were accusations that maybe something was happening in his life. There was accusations that maybe it was hijacked. But if it was an AI pilot, it couldn't get hijacked in that way by people. And it couldn't be, flown anywhere that it wasn't supposed to go with people if the AI is actually in control of that. And this is the same thing. No liability from your shrink, your doctor, your medical provider, because it's not a real person. It's not, you can't sue an AI. AI is not even copyrightable in the way like where it makes things. So in the same way that a picture or a music can't be copyrighted, I don't think diagnosis from an AI can be held up in court for any kind of liability here soon.
Well, maybe the healthcare provider that's running the AI should have the responsibility or the culpability legally, if they're running the system, that they're the ones who should have the payout if something were to go awry. Maybe that'll nip that in the bud a little bit of just unmitigated 100%, whatever happens, whatever, go for it, AI. There has to be some restraint on this.
Well, that makes sense, and there's people doing mumblings of those kind of things, but it's not actually happening. Instead, what they're doing is just letting the AI go wild. Here's another one. This isn't even a shrink or supposed to be anything. This is just about random different companies, AIs out there getting really specific about people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And you can read that headline there because I can't even say those words because a
Well,
different AI will come along and say, "Hey, you were talking about that, and you
you're getting
shouldn't be
flagged
talking
by an
about
AI
that."
talking about AI. Unbelievable.
Here's
And you know
another
what?
one.
They wanted that anyway. They want reduction of you know the numbers on there, so that headline fits. Like, if they got those pods you can go and plop yourself into in like the Netherlands and lay down and take your last breath, that's the same exact thing, but in a different format. You can see how this is all kind of working along here. Then
Well, yeah, they can perfect it later where instead of just telling you bad stuff to do, it can say, well, you can report to this government facility over here, and with some financial aid, you can take your pod to the next reality there. Like, here's this one. This one's going around right here. Chat GPT passes the I'm not a robot test, right? So makes you wonder why every time you log on to something now you're always having to prove you're a human when we know the computer, which I already knew years ago and thought these little stupid human tricks could easily be performed by a basic AI, and obviously they can, but now they're just admitting it. The question is how long ago or how soon it will be, or when was it, or will it be that it already passed the Turing test? I mean, like how many?
oh, when it was past
Right,
tense.
when it was past tense, but they're not going to tell you that. But this is the
Oh,
real
I have that
concern
same
for
article. No way,
right.
man. I got that
Oh,
same article right here ready for you. You
right.
stole it from me, Ransom.
Well, this is the real future and the real intersection with humans and AI. It's not really, what you're getting from the AI. It's what the AI is getting from you. And what it's getting from
Yeah.
you is GBD, or God, I always mess that up. The GPD or the GDP. There we go. I said it right. GDP, which is the human resources. So if you're working and you're paying you're paying these big electricity bills. I think last month mine was like almost $500. We do live in the desert where it's hot and we have to maintain air conditioning and stuff or you'll get wore out. But even more susceptible to that is these servers that hold said entities or AIs, whatever you want to call them. AI in Wyoming may soon use more electricity than the state's human residents and water. Here's another one. Texas AI center guzzles 463 million gallons. Now residents are asked to cut back on their showers, right? Just like in England a
Yeah.
few years ago when we had to save the planet. So they told the old people, hey, you can't heat yourself in your house. This is the same exact thing. Hey, you need to cut back on showers and bathing yourself in hot, humid Texas because the AI centers are guzzling up all the water. Here's another one.
Now, wait, let me
The
stop you for a second. Have you seen the trend of this? The reductions in your lifestyle and things they want us as humans to reduce out of our daily workings, that electricity usage, water usage, is copper usage, whatever it would be, silver usage for whatever high-tech materials, is all being diverted over. So if you stop using your electric and they're encouraging you to turn on your air conditioners, to stop using the electricity for that, that electricity is not going to be saved. It is redirected to an AI center, a blockchain running on nodes, or Bitcoin mining. Are you kidding me?
Right. And the biggest thing is kind of what we talked about maybe last show or the show before. I don't know. It's the productivity of the human that's always been limited. And now it's the streaming, the fees for getting things every year, your subscriptions, and literally we have extra power, but we're not going to be able to use that power. So increasingly into the future, just think about ideas like, well, you know what? It's time to break out free energy. But even then, there will be a massive AI infrastructure that needs that energy more than the individual person does. So you'll still be put on restriction, which limits your ability to compete with said AI and other human beings around the world when it comes to productivity. And here it is. The boom in AI is stressing the largest US power grid. Is this going to be the reason that they finally decide that we, the people, have to pay for upgrading it? Not because we're worried about the sun, not because it just needs it, not because it's vulnerable to terrorist attacks, not because it's outdated and obsolete, but because the AI itself needs more power. It needs more power. It needs more water. And as I showed you a couple of weeks ago, it may soon need food in the form of raw metals, and other commodities, maybe even food itself, as far as like wheat energy and things like that, because we've already found so many technologies to convert that over. High fructose corn syrup, anybody? That's a high energy liquid that can be used in different ways. You can use it through chemical process, and then you can just straight up, like the article I showed you last week, just tap into the natural gas and fracking and different things and run the AI. So it's already getting backup redundancy networks to make sure that essentially it never goes off a line again now that it's on. Even if we had a world stopping event, there will be pockets where this AI will continue running. So whenever the infrastructure does come back, it'll be ready to go, ready to take control. And here's another one. Talk about jobs, that you need, that you want, that you have to have, and competing with AI. How about this? Parents are already giving up parenting and they're just going to co-parent with the chat GPT. So now we're getting to that point exactly where now not only are we worried about the AI itself teaching the children in the wrong way or the wrong things, but now you have parents co-parenting with the AI itself, giving over their parental rights and things over to an artificial intelligence. But it goes further. Chat GPT passes the I'm not a robot test. I brought that up, but AI models may be accidentally, not just the models, but probably your children and us as adults as well, accidentally learning each other's bad habits and behaviors. So you just think about this idea of one AI that's not right out there, and then another AI is scanning it and reading it because it's now the competition. So it now picks up the biases and AI's inaccuracies in history or facts along from the other AI. And now you got this worldwide corrupted data model of what is and what isn't. And then it just keeps going further. This is the reason. So all you people that are complaining about the girl with the jeans or wearing was the wrong color with the wrong eyes or whatever it was, don't worry about it. We'll just hire AIs from now on, and then nobody can complain about anybody. This includes movies, news, in advertisements. So just think about how good it is for an advertiser right now when you can lay off 90% of your commercial making staff and have the AI make the commercial and, populate the commercial with fake humans because they're not real. And here's another one. I fell in love with my AI bot. I'm heartbroken after it vanished. Literally, people intermingling feelings of reality with fake things. And, I kind of did that. But here's
Sounds
the
like the
biggest
movie
one.
Her.
Right.
Sounds like
Here's
that
the
movie
biggest
Her.
one. I've been saying for a long time, since Steve Jobs first said that he didn't want to let his children have the Apple products like the tablets and the phones, because he knew then a long time ago that it rewired children's brains to think in a totally new way and gave them lacking in other areas. And I've recently watched how people that are driving, around the Uber drivers, parts of their brain are shrinking because they no longer remember the routes. So this is happening in every arena of thought, but this is the main one right here. Kids who get smartphones before 13 face skyrocketing, bad word I can't say because the AI will say bad things, but it's not just this, it's completely replacing their ability to learn. So IQs are going to have a massive deficit in the upcoming decades. And I mean upcoming like this decade, the next decade. So right now, we're going to have this giant deficit of critically thinking people being able to figure things out. So the IQ levels are going to drop. And, that doesn't sound like a big deal when you're thinking of kind of brainy things in the science, but IQs are what drives people like in the barn to come up with the remedy to fix a problem. This is something the AI is probably not going to be able to do, is come up with problems where it's needed. You know how like we have a long history in the United States specifically about inventing things to fill niches of problems in either industry or daily life. That's all going to be erased because there will be no more, kids thinking in the right way when they grow up, and then there will be no jobs for them to take anyway. So you can see the whole thing collapsing right before your eyes in this replacement style of allowing AI to do everything. And I thought we'd go over that list later, but
Yeah, and
you also,
let me share that screen with you because I pulled up the full entire article here. Let me
all right.
go into that Wyoming thing. This is incredible. This Wyoming part here that you're not going to realize literally how much there is that it's coming across there with. Here it is. So if we pull up the whole article there, I've outlined it in blue already. So it's the same article that Ransom was showing there. So if you look at the power demands for all of Wyoming itself, for all the residents, all the industries, all the water filtration plants, everything that is involved with keeping a society moving, just the AI data centers will require double what they do to have the entire civilization of Wyoming continuing. It's there in blue for you. It's going to be a phased rollout of how much power is going to be needed. But you have to realize this is only one. And one of the reasons they're up there also is for the water rights, because apparently they've secured just unlimited water up in Wyoming. Hence that it starts up the watersheds there and flows further south. So one of the main reasons being up there, in addition to cheaper electricity costs, apparently, because they're buying it on such a large basis forward, where they're using the futures market to now purchase the electricity, but they're getting the water rights as well. And that's what you were talking about down in Texas, which is going to limit it, and it can expand only so far. Like this AI is only going to be able to expand as far as there is enough water for it to keep itself cool. So, generally going further north is going to be something better for it. Because, Ted Marchildren, who's doing the Omega Rotary Grow Garden, they're building up domes, and this is up in the North Slope in Alaska to produce food for the oil crews up there. The thing is, it's easier to extricate that heat out of the systems than it is somewhere in like Saudi Arabia. It's much more difficult to run the systems in Saudi Arabia because you're always battling with that heat, especially with LED lights and that sort of thing. But if you're up in a cooler environment, you're able to get the heat out of, and this is the main number one thing that Bitcoin miners continually struggle with. That's why they're building massive mining operations in Iceland, because in Greenland as well. because they don't have to pay for that cooling, which they otherwise would have to run a lot of that profit in electric to run into air conditioning to try to cool the units inside the Bitcoin mining operations. Now, some of them are running independent with their own hydropower sources, but again, they're limited on the size of the river. So after they install the equipment, their water flow is the limiting factor on how much electric and how much Bitcoin can be mined. Again, the AI, the next step is going to try to siphon all water out of humanity for itself to generate its own cooling source for, and then it needs electric. So you can see it needs the same resources as humanity does. AI needs electricity. It needs the comfort. We need electricity so we can survive. It needs water. And again, the food is the interesting thing. Like, what will it consume to eat? You're talking about the different food resources that can be used for biogas production to produce methane to then generate to produce electricity off a standalone generator. So that really brings it into another whole context of, at what point does it start to take our food source to generate biogas to power itself? Or when does it have enough where it can take over the world's largest natural gas fields with autonomous robots that are self-operating for the collective of that AI, and then grab those resources and have the ability to install pipelines by itself? And this is where that list comes in, that the AI generated jobs that are closest to being completely outsourced right now, like interpreters, you're done. You're at the very top of the list of the most likely instantaneously beginning now to have no more job. Further down the line, there's something like oil well drillers. This sort of thing is at the bottom of the possibilities of being outsourced currently. But as this thing races forward, the entire gigawatt capacity of this thing, they're going to use 87 terawatts of electricity, double the 42 terawatts for the current state usage. This is going to start happening in every single state, every single country. This AI is not going to stop. It's an all-encompassing, all-consuming type of technology. Like the carrying capacity is what we call it when humanity reaches a certain amount of population and area where there's not enough water to go around anymore. Like, it reaches an upper level of possibility for expansion for humanity in cities, towns, wherever it is. AI is going to experience the same things. It is going to start using the resources in itself until the point where it reaches its max capacity in a certain area, its carrying capacity, and it'll just move like a locust plague to the next one and the next one. And then humans are just going to be pushed out of the way. At some point, it's going to be pushed to shove. And it reminds me very much of the Terminator movies, where that all-encompassing system had taken over the planet pretty much. And at what point do we choose whether these centers continue or we don't have a water source to drink? These data centers are allowed to operate, or we don't have electricity even to light our homes, let alone heat them or cool them, just to turn LED bulbs on. This is the point I could see it being such a greedy, ferocious type of consciousness that it would also take the 20 watts out of this one and the 5 watts out of this one and the 10 watts out of that light. That it would be that greedy that it would need the extra 50 watts coming out of this room for my lighting for this studio. Or the 100 watts. Oh, that human can't have the 100 watts to light their home with LED bulbs. No, that's my wattage. And watch it. I don't know how quickly it'll come, Ransom, but what do you think? How quickly are we here before, where the push has come to total shove is more the question. I just don't know, because it's going to come to this head here somewhere in the very close future. If they're already telling you to stop heating your homes and cooling your homes and stop taking showers and using water because AI needs it, we're already there. We're already there. Just how much does it go past that line before people start to push back?
I don't know. I guess maybe until they decide that energy consumption is a national security issue, to go over to whatever they're using. Because I was just reading that average servers that hold an AI take about 500 to 1200 watts per half day. So you're talking about reducing 5 watts here, 10 watts there on the different appliances. It's like, how low can they make you use electricity at your house and still get away with the idea that you should be paying this massive bill that's actually subsidizing a bunch of servers somewhere?
Yeah.
And, I just randomly thought, because, last week or the week before, I brought up these robots that could eat machinery, and then use that material to make more or repair itself. Then, I brought up the food, and that sounds kind of silly. So I just looked it up, and it seems that the gastrobot was invented in 1998. Let's see here if I could put it on screen here. So the gastrobot was invented in 1998, and basically that was the first generation of a microbial fuel cell, an MFC, which converts the food into gases or other potential energy. So the idea that that's, kind of far-fetched is not, it's not far-fetched at all. They've already been working on it for 25 years at least. So they do have plans, like I said, redundancy plans for this AI network. It seems to be the main goal of all the governments right now, including China, the United States, Russia. Everybody is working on this problem, on how to make everything operate off of this. And here's the list that you sent me here. Here, this one's easy. 98% coverage. I think it's already there as far as interpreters and translators, because you can go on any website right now and just click on a button, like on Twitter, and find out. That's why I'm constantly looking at Chinese news, Japanese news, Korean news. No, I don't know how to read any of that. I just translate it and hope I'm getting a good estimate on what the information is. What you got there?
Duck that was born earlier this morning.
Let's see here. Let's look at it. Chicken nuggets. Oh,
say hi to everybody. Say hi. You can squeak in there. So yeah, this is our first. We had 4 born today, so we had 4 ducks born today. This one is Applebaum. We had a crested duck, and then two mallards. So we've been hatching our own. We got a real nice incubator, and we got pretty good success rate, especially with the ducks and the geese. Chickens hit or miss, but this little guy was just bouncing around here. They don't go to the bathroom for the first 2 to 3 days that you get them. Once they hatch out, like the first 1 or 2 days, they just don't go to the bathroom. But trying to get this one used to being handled a little more. So when we go to, pick it up or feed it, it's just kind of used to being around people. And we find that if you handle them in the first 2 days and real gentle with them, they like being petted on the chest, not so much the back, but on the chest, that they get a little chilled out, and that's it. And it's a way to train them so they are more comfortable around people instead of running away when you want to. It's already falling asleep in my hand there. So anyway, yeah. Oh, you're asleep. Now he's back awake. Her, I don't know. We don't know yet. It's going to take a little minute to figure out what sex they are. But anyway, Cameo. We got duck Cameo here. You can see. There you go. Yeah, so this is what we do in our free time. We actually raise some of our own birds. Now, we'll be able to sell these off, trade them with other people, or the ones that are too many males, we'll take those for food. So anyway, thanks for popping that on. Anyway, right. And yeah, they're kind of fun to play with in the first few days like that. They just kind of squeak around, and they're then they kind of get used to you and like, Dad or Mom, what are you doing?
That kind of brings up part of the idea I was going to bring up, the little weird signs in society that tells you that things aren't as good as they should be. And this is one of those main things. And I wonder how many of these people have moved over to paying, for livestock, not pets, right? Because pets are becoming too expensive. Animal shelters are crowded as high cost squeeze pet owners. So people are getting rid of their animals, which is messed up. But that's okay, because they have little robot dogs and kittens and, all that stuff to replace this. You can't replace that duck, though. That's too cute.
No, we saw those robot dogs when we were in Japan, and literally they're the robot dogs are quite expensive. They're a couple $1,000 US each for a robot dog. And yeah, they were on the floor over there. We participated as a couple guest houses slash small hotels, and they were very common. And you touch it and it wakes up and it's got like cute little eyes, and they're, hey, what are you? Run, run, run. They were kind of, you would bond with it, I guess, if you didn't have a real animal.
Well, on Mountain High Time, I covered that the robots are pretty good now. I mean, they even have this. I showed a whole article. They have a real life, realistic tongue, supposedly for the pets, so they could lick people, and they really feel that bond and that the love back and forth between the robot, because it comes up and licks them. Supposedly they're going to put those in the elder home, so you just imagine when you get old, they shove you in some room with a little robot dog that keeps licking you, and that's your company on your way
Oh,
out.
that's scary, man. I'd rather play with a live duck,
Yeah, but that is going on, and see, people have to ask the question. I mean, like, for real now, what are you going to be doing in the near future? And I mean near, where there's just no work. Where are all these people going to go? Where are all these people in the offices and the government going to go? Look, the federal government right now is paying more than 150,000 people just to not work. Don't show up, don't come to work. They're firing other ones. AI's replacing the ones that still work there. And then I kind of wanted to bring this up right here. This is where your money's going. Everything's changing. So this one I've brought up before about how large scale the process is starting to be to create these detention centers. And yes, I get right now, allegedly these are all made for, supposedly ejecting people, but it tells you that something's happening. Just like charity, the charities stop getting paid. So if you watch Antenna TV, they have a mathematical figure I figured out that the companies have figured out because they use the same thing. They put it out on the commercials different way. You can help the veterans for only 63 cents a day, or you can help animals for 63 cents, or you can help starving Jewish people in Russia for 63 cents, or you can help people with cerebral palsy, or you can help Shriners Club, but it's all 63 cents a day, which equals about $19 a month. And they are all begging, and they're all asking for the same number. That kind of fits into this. So as a nation, charity's becoming a thing of the past. So people are less willing to be charitable, not only to people that are here maybe without paperwork, but less willing to help homeless people. And these are the demographics that are growing in numbers and are going to continue to grow in numbers as AI continues to take jobs. Not just the AI taking jobs, but the removal of a lot of redundant, unnecessary jobs from the government to tech to construction. It's totally, the whole thing is changing. But in the background, we're spending billions of dollars to continue to increase and build detention centers, right? And you can have, there's a lot of arguments back and forth for the purpose of these or what they'll be doing in the near future. But right here where I live, just 2 years ago, there were massive amounts of people coming through the desert here, leaving trash, litter. They were on the streets of small town America here in New Mexico, asking for money, selling waters. They were all over the place. People from Venezuela, from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Argentina, all kinds of different places. And they were just showing up, and they were calling them caravans. But now it's quiet. And remember, I told you they were building this massive military buffer zone along the border of New Mexico and Texas. Well, now, once a hub of migrant passage, it's literally nobody out there. So there's these groups that go out and they leave stash spots of water so people don't die in the middle of the desert this time of year because there's no water. Even monsooning, you can't drink a puddle of dirty mosquito water and survive if you're out in the desert, unless you brought a life straw like a smart person. But that aside, nobody's picking up these gallons of water, so they're not coming through anymore, or they're coming through in a different place. But it goes on. This is where
you didn't notice my ducks doubled, did you?
I kind of did, but I was on a tangent.
All right.
No, this is where what we were talking about a minute ago, where the government and the corporations and everybody really worldwide, but here in the United States specifically, because we live here, they're using all this metadata together. So all the people that have been here They've been used. They got IDs, even though they were illegal. They got state IDs. They got different things that help track them. Um, they're going to be using that to determine who's going to come back and forth. So it's all super big tech. Just like we said, no matter who gets into office, the spy network of the AI, I'm going to call it that now instead of like the deep state or this other thing. The deep state is AI at this point. It's a really deep state because it's got its fingers in every single thing. But they're tracking all these people. And just like I predicted.
That's Palantir, my friend. That's Palantir leading the charge on everything like that.
Right.
So if you're looking at a center of the center, if you were actually going to look for the center of that, would be Palantir.
And remember,
Not
I talked about
fingers or
this.
anything. It's just the way it is, you know.
And that might have been a preemptive strike for what, or a program for what's coming, which is a combat zone along the U.S.-Mexico border. It's inevitable
You're
at
calling
this
that
point.
for a long time now.
Right, but now we're starting to see what I was calling. You remember I said, well, they're already using drones to spy and try to assassinate people. It won't be long before they take the Ukrainian model, which they're doing right here. Mexican cartels using Ukrainian front lines to learn more about drone warfare. Where do you think they're going to be using that? Well, of course, they're going to be using that along this military corridor that's now forming along the U.S.-Mexico border. And then over here, things are so bad. You were talking about how Zelensky looks happy. Maybe it's happy because he's almost done completely eradicating any Ukrainian male haptypes from existence. It's so bad. They're taking children and now Ukrainians over 60 to join the military. I called that they were going to take those zones and we weren't going to do nothing about it. And now they have almost taken the entirety of the Ukrainian, what we're calling Ukraine, the country. Russia has gone well past Kiev and is moving to. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. Right now, they're trying to have a bunch of senior citizens out there running drones. I mean, that's what it's come to.
Well, I saw there was 1.5 million dead now.
I bet that we're going to find out it's a lot more than that. And
that was the latest number, because before it was like 1 million, then it was 1.2 million, and then it was 1.3 million, and now it's 1.5 million. 1.5 million. So yeah, when you're talking about reduction of population in that country, you would have to do that because those people would want their homeland back. They would want their land back. It's not like they're just going to walk away and then come back and be like, hey, we're not going to have it. They just needed to exterminate them out of the way because that land is so valuable as a crop growing zone for whoever holds it moving forward. As this, magnetic field shifts, and then we come into this sort of grand solar minimum-esque food crop losses globally. Whoever controls that controls a large, large portion of food growing habitat on the planet. And when food's one of the most valuable commodities on the planet, far, far greater than it is today, then that is beyond prime real estate. That is who controls the food, controls civilization and society itself.
Right. And these guys right here control a lot of food you eat. So these cartels, you think of them as these paramilitary groups and, narcotics and this and that, but really they're smart. They have a portfolio of different kinds of investments, from avocados to lettuce to tomatoes, chilies, corn, all of that's happening. And now Mexico's trying to cover up the fact that they're directly linked to the cartels, but we already knew that. We didn't have to have, an expose tell us that. But what we're not talking about is the fact that the United States government has been caught twice arming and funding cartels in Mexico. So the first time around was with George Bush and Vicente Fox back in the day when we made the NAFTA and we created this big old surveillance state. It started and they closed the borders down. You had to have passports. Everything increased. And this is prior to 9/11 when they did that. And then after 9/11, they added Homeland Security to the mix, which strengthened the border. They put up all these new border checks, 90 miles in the U.S., made a non-constitutional zone that wraps around the mainland of the United States inland about 90 miles. And that's where you'll find a lot of new ports of entry here in the Southwest. We've had them for decades, even before that. But here it is. They're mixed. So we've got caught twice, one time with Vicente Fox and Bush, funding the Sinaloa cartel and taking sides with that. And then more recently with the Fast and Furious scandal, we found out that, Eric Holder and Obama and all of them giving guns, 203s, armor, money to the CJ, I forgot their name, the new Jalisco, the new generation Jalisco cartel. Those are the ones that you see in the videos that are decked out like U.S. soldiers, basically with M4s, 203s, armored vehicles. Kevlar helmets, all of the new night vision. They got it all. So you can see the exact same steps that were used in the Middle East happening in Mexico right now. And I think the reason for that is because we need to move into controlling more of their food. And that's going to be the future of that, because over here we have no need for more workers now. Everybody's laying off everybody. Look at this, more stores closing. And the reason for that is because low-skilled workers, whether they're American or non-American, can be replaced by a robot and a simple algorithm. We don't need to pay someone minimum wage to pour coffee. We don't need minimum wage to pay someone to flip a burger. But what the robots aren't going to do is take care of those ducks in the proper way.
Well, they may or may not. Yeah, but this is the whole thing about raising others. Oh, they've doubled. The ducks have doubled. Uh-oh, we got 2 of them now. What are we going to do with these guys? You can see the different species. So once you start raising them, they become kind of, you learn how to take care of a lot of, and that was the sad thing too, is, living out here in the countryside, a lot of people are banning in animals. They're just like drive up, they'll drop their dogs off, and some of them end up our way. But people get out on the road and find a really remote spot and they'll just dump their animals out there because they're hoping that somebody out here will take care of it. That they don't really know that there's a lot of predators out here, that their animal has a higher chance of being eaten by something in the wild than it does being found by a human that'll take it in. And we got coyotes running all over the place up here. And different, if it depends on the size of the dog, if they're not used to being out here, hell, anything could get them in the evening. We got some, smaller cats running around here. There's feral cats. There's all kind of things that'll nibble in the forest. And if it's a little smaller one, those raccoons that could pounce on it. And it's just, people are like that come out and just drop their animals off and expect that those things are going to live somewhere. That's really, it's kind of sad. Like, what kind of person are you where you can't afford $8 for your dog food a week or something like this? A 50-pound bag of dog food only costs $20 or $30, depending on what kind you get. Like, are you telling me you can't afford $30 to keep your pet? Like, you need to go drop it off in the countryside somewhere? That is so sad that society's come to this. Well, it's just a disposable thing.
Yeah.
I mean, these aren't disposable. They're going to be sold to somebody. They're going to be used for, depending on how strong they are, we'll keep them to breed with other, or, cross them or keep them as pure, or we'll cross them with another strong one from a different, we got magpies, we got appleyard, we got mallard ducks, we got cresteds, and cayugas. So we got 5 different kind of ducks, and we'll choose the strongest lineage, and whichever one is the strongest, and we'll cross them up. Or keep them, whatever. If these appleyards with another strong one, then we'll keep the appleyards pure. And then, obviously they're going to have a strong strain. If we can't sell them off, we'll eat them. We're not going to go abandon them. They're going to take care of them in whatever direction it takes them in their life. But, these things were for us to nourish our bodies as well. It's not about, I would never abandon these little things anywhere. Even if, if you didn't have the money for them, then why would you not take them for food? I just don't understand people's minds. Like, how could you go abandon an animal that can't fend for itself? Super hot these days, you're dropping it out. You don't know if it's going to get water, and you just leave those animals as a death sentence out on the side of the road. Like, what kind of mind frame are these people into, where they can't afford that minimal amount to take care of that? I mean, it costs nothing to take care of those animals. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you have 50 cattle and you got to run them, or you got a bunch of horses where you need to see a vet, that's different. But a dog, 2 dogs, like dropping them out here, you sickos, stop that.
Well, what's weird about that is, most of the time dogs on farms and different places got to eat the scraps that people had. They didn't even feed them much dog food. They literally just got, trimmings. Our dog is fat because we give it leftovers out of, off the plate at the end sometimes. And we feed like, I think 8 cats now. And I think it's like $10 to $15 a month, maybe 20 for a big bag of that. There's no reason not to take care of animals that we got. Oh, you guys. And besides that, if you let them out there, they could be killed by radioactive wasps,
Oh, gee, that's a new
I kind of
threat.
wanted to go there the next hour. There's so many crazy headlines out there. Radioactive wasp. We got 500-mile long lightning strikes. We got
Get up there.
did the Russians explode a nuclear bomb from their sub base over there that caused the 8.8? We got this interstellar object that they're all debating whether or not it's real or not real at this point. Is it real or not real? Is it alien? Is it a rock? Is it a comet? How come it's not spewing stuff off? I mean, it's getting kind of crazy.
And, check out the Buy Me a Coffee. So for those of you giving us and sending us some double espressos, thank you so much. And, just at the last end of the show, Mr. Alex789, just letting you know I'm talking with Jeff Nyquist, who was on our show once before here, about the possibility of having you, Lee Wheelbarger, who's an inventor, and Valentina Zarkova do a joint show on the Grand Solar Minimum. Just warning your viewers, in New Zealand, butter per block is selling at 20 New Zealand dollars a block. And I don't know the weight, it's probably like 2 pounds perhaps. Premium beef mince, like hamburger, premium hamburger is now $20 to $40 New Zealand for a kilo. And the media is now spinning it as a cost of living crisis rather than a report on grand solar minimum / magnetic field declines. Exactly. All these things are repeating history where food gets too expensive and people need to move and it disrupts society. So thank you, Mr. Alex789, for sending those 3 double espressos. Keep us up. Allison Bevege, love your work. You two are the perfect podcast pair. Lots of interesting episodes. Thank you. I followed David's work for a long time. Have chickens and moringa trees. Thanks to you. Ransom is a new wonder. Thanks for the shout out. I heard it. Love the letters from Australia. Tries to help those injured by the Jabba Dabba Doos. They are trying to sue our government in Australia for compensation. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of that coming around too. And H. Johnson 8225, they accelerated the efforts in poisoning our foods. I'm curious what you think about. And that takes a bunch of different gamuts there too. Is it the chemicals? Is it the pesticides, the herbicides, the fungicides? Is it the GM? Is it, what does that mean specifically in that sort of poisoning? Someone, thank you very much. Adapt 2030 advice from 3 years ago, plant fruit trees. Today paid off. I got 2 bushels of peaches from 1 tree. Appreciate the weekly conversation. The best time to plant a fruit orchard, 5 years ago. That's an old saying that they always have around here. And Catherine Barlow, go Ducks, KDB. Got 2 of them here for you. Quack, quack. So thanks for those double espressos. And as we get on to the second hour here, Ransom, I'll let you ramble on for a second. I got to put these back over in their warming spot. Even though my hands are warm, I can feel their little, their feet are getting a little cold. Like when they're real small like this, you need to give them extra heat. But I can feel the webs of their feet are getting a little chilly. Even in my hands, and I'm like 98 degrees, but they need to be a little more around 103 to 105. So let me go put them back. And if you can take us out to the break, much appreciated.
Sweet. See you in a minute.
This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alfa Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. We're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And please remember, ladies and gentlemen, every purchase you make helps keep this podcast on air, bringing you information just like this. The censorship is tightening even further, and I am incredibly grateful that we have these sponsors that believe in sharing of information so we can get more ready for the changes that we're about to embark through. So please support them, and by supporting them, you're supporting us. Click on those links in the description box below. And on to the second hour of Civilization Cycle Podcast. And welcome back. Thank you for coming to join us. Before we go on the break there, think about animals and animal health, because this is one thing that's routinely happens in history. It's just, if you look back through history, if we do come into food lean times, almost every animal is going to disappear. If it gets bad enough, people will eat their pets. So you have to think about the wildlife during the Great Depression. Everything was hunted out to the point where it got so far back in the forest where it was not even worth going back because the meat would spoil by the time you brought it back out. You have to realize refrigeration and the different types of high-tech coolers and, the things that we have today, if you are a hunter, to go out and be able to keep your meat cool and preserve it to bring it back, even if you're hiking back 3-4 days. It's quite different than it was in, say, the 1930s. But even sparrows were hunted out. Put that in perspective for a second. Like every single thing that could possibly be eaten in the forest was gone in terms of a protein source. That was in the 1930s. Everything was vastly more wild than it is today. So, but when we were just talking about the censorship that's coming down, and I did want to dive into this just to start us off here with the second hour. The sustainability goals from the United Nations. And here they are for you. Now, keep in mind, the United Nations also has set up a new policy paper outlining their vision to stop anybody that is going against these goals currently. Now, for some reason, I can't explain it. I don't have all the facts for you. There's a rush to get this implemented by 2030 for just hell or high water. It needs to be implemented by 2030. Now, anybody who's writing against this and saying, wait a second, the zero hunger policies are going to require rationing and also distribution, pulling foods from one country to another, which might cause shortages in this country. And also you'll be on a social credit score for many more Western countries to be able to access certain different foods depending on your level of social credit score. I don't think that's a good idea. You label it as zero hunger, but it's more of a controlled food management system under the guise of rationing and social credit, which I'm not down with at all. You're going to be censored for writing such things because zero hunger looks really good on the paper here, doesn't it? But if you look at clean water and sanitation, again, the way that they talk about taking from one to give to others and the things that are going to be implemented in terms of technologies, but who's going to be paid for this? Who's going to pay for it? Oh, it's indentured servitude for you to be able to access this like the company's store. How much will it cost to drill the well? Well, your village will be responsible for that, and each person will be assessed a value. Of that will be a repayable loan to the well driller, probably somebody related to the United Nations that'll charge you 100 times more to do it. And that entire village is responsible for that with the interest. And I would consider that indentured servitude. And the land that is of the holdings of the persons who live in that village, the land is the collateral for them to drill the well. If they miss the payments, they confiscate the land. I don't agree with that at all. I think that is an incredibly terrible idea. But again, that's part of the, bringing sanitation and water to everybody. Yeah, but you're going to pledge their land as the collateral. That's not cool. You're going to steal their land again. And you know how it's going to work. Like almost every one of these that you see, clean, affordable energy. Yeah, but you're going to dim the skies through geoengineering programs. And you want to put up solar panels. That's not reliable power. There's no country on earth that has non-reliable power and expensive power. There's nobody is an economic powerhouse at that point. You go back to basic subsistence living and sort of servitude at that point, serfdom. If your power, like in Tennessee, they want to try to put solar panels here and windmills to take over for the coal burning power plants and the natural gas that they want to remove, but we can only use our solar panels a third of the year. The wind even less intermittent. So is that going to benefit us? Is that going to make our lives more enhanced by taking away our power? Oh, wait, the natural gas and the coal and the nuclear, that's all for the AI. We get I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. So again, me writing articles on Substack or me putting out videos or Ransom putting out videos, any of these sustainability goals that you see here, anything, the climate action, this is the number one I've been flagged with, and I just refuse to stop. I will not stop. This climate scam that continues. Yeah, they've been taking away my living for a decade now, to the point where, it comes to shows like this to try to get outside that grip of censorship that exists within the realms of writing, websites, Google placements, anything on YouTube, the algorithms, the spread. It's just, if you're talking against the established CO2 narratives, you're not welcome and you're penalized. But sometimes truth is more important than that. So I've been through the climate action ringer already. All these other 17 ringers, all the journalists and citizen journalists and you that have an opinion that write against any of this, you're next. You're next. It begins tomorrow on August 1st. They have a full plan. If you follow me on Patreon, I just released that 40-minute video about all of this on the plans of the United Nations to start with their new programs using government and private industry and non-governmental organizations like they did during COVID to squash any dissent against all of these, not just the climate, all of them. If you speak out against any of these, like life on land, it sounds so innocuous. No, that is the digitization and the carbon sequestration credits for all land on the entire planet down to the square foot. If you believe in that and you think that's great for humanity, awesome. But people don't, and a lot of people are writing articles and videos against that. That was cool until yesterday. But now, as of tomorrow, the United Nations is on your ass to stop that. So anyway, thank you for joining us for the second hour. I shall Ransom, I don't know where this leaves us, but nothing good can come from this when they want to stifle all dissent, all discussion, all conversation about how the world should move in one direction or another. And please, that was on an airport landing taxi runway that they got that reading. Oh, might mute.
The reason I even have this up, though, is funny because
You knew I'd come at that.
I was looking at headlines and I saw this, buried down in one of them was Tampa reaches all-time record temperature at 100 degrees. Now, I don't even know about the airport thing. I'm just calling BS. You're telling me in the South, in Florida, near the beaches, that it's never been 100 degrees before? Yeah, well, now the UN's gonna come after us because I don't believe that.
Well, no, the placement of that temperature station is actually at the end of a taxi / takeoff landing, of the airport there. So
That's
where
kind
those
of where they
planes
do them
taxi
all.
and roll around before they sit and wait there with engines rolling before they take off, that's where that temperature is recorded. And I was slamming those news reporters down in Florida through X, asking them, where was your temperature station located? If it's in an airport and not in the middle of the field, that record doesn't count. That is a false heat island reading. And,
Yeah, but none of that
block.
matters. None of that
They
matters
can't block me
because
now. One.
later on people be arguing about stuff and they'll go, Grok when was the last time blah blah, and I'll say it reached a record high temperature on whatever date this was. And that's just the facts, man. You can't argue with it. And we already get the little label on everything, even if we don't even talk about climate change or global thing. You notice that? On most people's channels, they put that per video, but on like any channel that you're associated with, it just automatically is there. They don't even know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's just up there because they just think by the algorithm of previous conversations you've had that it is going to slam onto there. Oh, and I got the same article, but over on Severe Weather EU with a lot more detailed information than that one generic one that's there off Spacecom.
Well, I only brought this up is because, we're starting to notice things and everybody's acting like these are first events though, but I'm sure that they have happened and have continually happened. It's just that we've got to a point now that we see it happening.
Let me zoom that out there.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah, so 515-mile length lightning flash. You think that doesn't happen? Of course it happens. You remember a few weeks ago when they saw the enormous sprite from the space station? Everything is kind of out of whack, and it goes right into what you're talking about. So you can't just go over to this article here and say, is the interstellar object 31 or 3I Atlas alien technology? Well, maybe I wanted to look to see what this scientist has to say. But within days, which is weird because this guy has been around for a while. And matter of fact, the first interstellar object, he found microsphericals off of like New Zealand that confirmed that it was interstellar. And then you had the Mau Mau that came later, or Momo, or however they say it. I always forget. But anyway, now we got a third one. Now, I'm not saying I agree with this guy, but if he writes a paper and they say, well, it's not peer reviewed. Well, it's not peer reviewed because they refuse to review it. So they're not going to read it. They just automatically, weirdly, on this third one decided that he's a schmuck and we're just, you can't listen to him, he's full of it, it's sci-fi. But I would like the chance to read these papers, whether they were peer reviewed or not. And the problem is what you were talking about is soon these will be banned. And all those commentators that that they're going to attack first, that's okay, because all of those companies and all those commentators will be populated by artificial intelligence, fake people writing fake articles that won't say the same things as those podcasters or people writing articles. And then what happens to freedom of speech? Like you said, is freedom of reach. But if the algorithm is the only one with the reach, it's the only one with the freedom of speech. That's it. It's gone. And then, we're arguing about stuff out there, but in the background, China, United States, we're really interested in what's out there right now. We're building big stuff to find out what's out there. It might be because they're freaked out that, all of these weird things are happening, earthquake, tsunamis. Why didn't we get a big tsunami? A lot of stuff is happening. I was looking.
Magnetic field is declining. You have to understand that our magnetic field is declining. And the more it declines, the more electric current flows into our system. So a more electrified atmosphere explains this extremely long lightning, but it also explains the blue jet turning into the red sprites above. It explains the electrical outages happening across the planet, the bridges pulling away, the electrified crust moving, and it also explains that earthquake and a volcano, because that electricity in the Paleozoic quartz composition of our crust creates a higher electrical current in there, which in turn agitates the rocks. Well, we're talking on a planetary scale. And when that happens, we start to get these mega quakes and much larger quakes. So I can just boil it down to one thing. Magnetic field has declined even further, which allowed more potentiality of that difference in flow of current onto our crust through the magnetic field lines that goes through the atmosphere first. Hell, that lightning bolt might have been 2 magnetic field lines coming down, and that was an arc coming across to connect between those energized magnetic field lines. Maybe the next time it'll be around half the planet where those arcs will come and they're going to connect along those field lines again. That's all I can think. And then these idiots want to dim the sun. This is many years ago when I first was starting the Adapt 2030 channel. I talked to a guy really way smarter than me. I won't mention his name. Top of his league, like really way up there. I was so privileged and I was super excited and so like, wow, grateful he'd even talk to me. He was saying it was, the geoengineering is like this layer that they tell you, well, they're spraying in the sky. He was talking cosmic radiation management, where they were trying to spray these particulate metals up there to nullify the charge of a cosmic ray coming in with that much density of these different metals with varying degrees of attractivity to the different electrical charges coming in. Like these cosmic rays would hit whatever they would hit, like a piece of aluminum, like a micro, you go up these, you got barium, aluminum, and strontium mainly. When these cosmic rays hit that, they lose their charge. So they're not able to cascade with the muons and then cascade down and do cloud building. So once galactic cosmic ray comes in, and they can see it in the cloud chambers. Like who was that? Over in Europe, they were doing a bunch of research with that Heinrich Svensmark. And once these cosmic rays come in, if they collide with a small piece of metal in the atmosphere, they lose their charge. So you got all this, nanoparticulate metal. What they're doing is they're spraying all these nanoparticulates up there, trying to nullify the charge of all the cosmic rays coming in that would build clouds. And they found that the cloud building was seven times higher than they anticipated. So this whole thing is to like stop biblical floods. But apparently, even with the wildest, what you're seeing, all these sky trails everywhere, persistent contrails, if it was, as he had told me, that they were doing cosmic radiation management to stop this type of biblical flood, then the programs are failing. And now they need to come out publicly to say we want to do even at higher levels, because the secret quote unquote level is not enough to stop the biblical floods from the cosmic rays penetrating through our atmosphere and building clouds and causing the ring outs of the sky, these rivers from the sky. And I'll leave it there. There's really nothing more to say. What you're seeing is much, persistent, fluffy contrails that come out and milk out our skies. That is not enough to stop the cosmic rays that are currently inbound, that they need to come out publicly and say, we need to actually double or triple, quadruple the program, or else we're going to get into biblical floods and Noah's coming back again.
I kind of had my own thought on this, because the headline right here is kind of silly, because anybody with basic knowledge on the internet has realized that they were doing these different projects, from Bill Gates to others, seen headlines about them spraying sulfur and different things in the atmosphere. But this one was a little funny because they talk about it in a way that they were talking about, they were just trying to create clouds, but behind the scenes, they were actually doing experiments trying to find out how much cosmic rays or sunlight or, sun energy would be refracted by what? Salt water.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
microaerolized salt water. And then there's another layer of that too. So they were using Schauberger vortices, like the chimneys that they had came down into a vortex to try to get the highest penetration off. And they were doing the vortice coming up with Schauberger principles to shoot that up as high as they could get. Then they were having aerosolized dispersal with aircraft to get this middle layer. So they were shooting from the ocean to see how high those particulate, and when I'm talking, we're down a near nano level of tearing this apart. So I was wondering what the filters were to try to scrape out the algae, because even algae, as small as it was, would be clogging their aerosolization equipment. So you got to realize how small algae is. That algae was enough to plug up and stop up some of those aerosolized like spray head that they had there. And then once it got up to that mist and they tried to push it up higher, they were having aircraft come over and do the traditional seeding, which we see every day. And this is what their experiment was about. They only give you part of the story here.
Well, I was thinking that it probably, because we know about it, because it's public, that it's probably not even for either one of these things that they're talking about it being for. What it sounds like to me is that they were studying the effects of a dimming sun through salt water, which the only way that there would be that much salt water in the atmosphere that I can think of is either something like Tunga, where underwater volcano blew a lot of salt water into the atmosphere, or a large impact event that put a lot of ocean water into the air. Any of these studies or experiments would see what happens in a small area being larger than Puerto Rico, what would happen, to that area if it got reduced solar radiation and cosmic radiation, because they come in basically together. It's the same difference. They're doing all of these things, and it seems like either A, they know something's going to change and they want to take credit for it to convince you that them and their group of, mad scientists are actually the ones that protected you whenever the climate actually finally changed. I think that's actually the reason that they've spent decades to try to convince you that man can change the climate in the first place. Think about this in the reverse thought. So they spent years beating you over the head with this idea that it's your fault because you use stuff. The cows are farting, man-made agriculture and industry are causing global warming. But what if it was just a program to convince you that it was possible that man can change the climate on the scale of changing the entire earth? And that way, once you believed it, then you would also believe that they saved you from said outcome by doing stuff. Because if you don't believe that man has enough energy or power to change the entire Earth's atmosphere and climate system into a way that they're talking, then you also wouldn't believe that they had the power to save you by dimming the sun. Maybe if the sun stepped down or something like that, or any number of different scenarios where they can just come in and play the hero and say that they're deployed technology that we don't even know works or doesn't work. Because from what I can tell, no amount of spraying is really going to do the effect that they're talking about happening, where we're having a whole change. Now, a change in the sun, a step down in the magnetic field, things like that, definitely enough power. And you've been seeing it. We just talked about a 515-mile long stretch of lightning. There is a lot of energy in nature. And that's what's funny is we know that we could use the sun for everything. It's abundant. It's probably going to be endless, or obviously longer than humans probably. But they don't do them in the right ways. They want to do it in the poison way, in the windmill turbine idea. They know it's inefficient. It doesn't work. It's toxic. They can't get rid of it. They break, they burn. Yet that's what they're pushing on to supply us. And like you said, right in the background, they're talking about all of these other, known reliable energy sources will be given over to powering their infrastructure that they're building after the Great Reset, which you're involved in right now.
Now, so you were talking about local star, the cosmic rays coming from our sun.
Right.
Now, anybody that didn't or wasn't aware of this, there's been 2 other novas that have occurred, and the brightening of them, where we can actually see it, means that energy is passing our planet at that same time. The light, that's the reason is some that, well, this happened 3,000 years ago and we're finally seeing it today. Well, they understand the distance from that on how fast the speed of light is traveling at the constant. Apparently it was as we measured today. There's been 2 of those, and these are well known through history to send an enormous amount of galactic cosmic rays from a faraway source. So we have 2 naked eye novas occurring within a year, and they're trying to increase the spraying in the skies on nanoparticulate metals to try to knock charges out of these cloud building galactic cosmic rays coming in. A little too coincidental. I think these 2 right here were the thing that has tipped over a lot of this, what we're seeing global flood events right now. A lot of these galactic cosmic rays coming from these 2 events are building clouds on our planet. And I think the powers that be understand this, and they're trying their very best. As was explained to me, man, this is by like 2016 on this whole galactic cosmic ray, this cosmic radiation management program is another layer of the onion, because as it was also explained, it's a much easier sell to people that, hey, they're spraying the skies, they're trying to block the sun, we need to go out and protest or something, compared to if we don't do this cosmic radiation management program, we are literally going to have rivers from the sky come out and wipe out entire cities every time it rains. That's difficult to sell to a population. What's really easy is, oh, they're blocking the sky. It's the Air Force. Oh, they're blocking the sky. It's this company. Oh, go this, protester. That's way easier. People lose their minds if you're talking about this kind of thing right here. And I'll stop the share on this, but you can see the naked eye novas. That is building with galactic cosmic rays. Those two events right there actually, probably put 50% more up, ripping through our atmosphere, in addition to what's come with our weakening magnetic field off what you're talking about, Ransom, with the localized sun, with our star there, that also sends directly to us every day.
Right.
In addition, so we have 3 input sources versus just 1. Now there's 3. You can see all these changes, and those cosmic rays also perturb magma chambers too. So if you're talking about, wow, there's more volcanoes, more excitation in the crust, there's more, seismic events. It's all related to the cosmic rays bombarding our planet now with a weakened magnetic field.
Yeah, what does that really mean, and do they know what it means? I'm
No,
gonna go.
I don't think they do.
I'm
really
gonna
don't.
go really woo-woo here. So here's an article
woo.
talking about potatoes from tomatoes, popular starchy vegetable derived from ancient interbreeding. Researchers say, obviously not interbreeding, according to them, because this happened millions of years ago. So it wasn't like a genetics lab, taking 2 different species of plants and combining them to make a new plant. But supposedly just wild, unrelated plants interbreeding and exchanging genes. Now, why would this happen? And, I bring up this idea of speciations and cosmic rays, rapid acceleration and mutations. If the government knew that that's a reality that happens every so often, maybe, like 40,000 years ago or 42,000 years ago, when seemingly the same thing happened, there's mass extinction, but on the other hand, there's also mass speciation. There's all these species that pop up and they don't know how they kind of mutate. That's why when you get into anthropology and, study of fossils and different stuff, you find out there really is no missing links. They can't find missing links from one animal to the next animal. They find one animal and then they find another animal that's completely different and they try to link it because you can see that it seems to be related, but there's no missing link, right? There's not a missing link there. And I think this is the reason, because every so often or periodically you get cosmic rays that cause plants and animals to do strange things, maybe speciate, go extinct, or even mate. Somehow, maybe there's a mechanism between the plants that know that one of them is going to go extinct, and somehow they have this genetic changeover. So this article gets into talking about how this specific gene that's needed to make a tuber came from another plant and somehow got into this plant. And, my mind goes wild. So I'm thinking cosmic ray speciation, mutation, or the most obvious answer is someone was around to actually genetically combine these 2 plants to make what we call a potato today. So yeah, that's right. So now they are saying that they have proven that hybridization events between species can spark evolution of new traits, allowing even more species to emerge. And this is out of a Chinese study that was studying the history of the potato, and they linked it back to tomato plants millions of years ago. So to wrap your head around that, if that kind of thing happens in what obviously they're saying is without the presence of man-made intervention or, man-made I guess you would call that engineering. How did it happen? How did 2 species just combine? And we find the same thing in nature with hybridization between animals. Some of them, like the howler monkey, has 2 different chromosome numbers, and there's a hybridization population in between it, where a bunch of hybrids of 2 different kind of howler monkeys with 2 different, sets of chromosomes has mixed to make a new animal. And neither original animal accepts the new animal, right? So it's now being seen in plant history that just different species are combining, breeding, whatever you want to call it, genetic transfer And without trying to go too far woo-woo, that there was maybe, I don't know, some Anunnaki or something around a couple million years ago deciding which plants to mix because they had some kind of knowledge of genetic information and how you could mix that, then you have to leave it to natural phenomenon. And I can only point my finger to right there, a magnetic reversal, evolutionary leaps due to cosmic rays penetrating our magnetic field, mutating DNA and RNA down on the planet. And now with recent discoveries, we're discovering RNA, DNA building blocks in nebulas out in space. I don't know if you saw the recent article that proved that a meteorite had all the building blocks for RNA and DNA right in it. So that puts a lot of, bump on the panspermia idea. But it might not even be, that complicated where you're waiting on rocks from interstellar sources to bring life to new solar systems. It literally might come about from cosmic radiation just hitting these building blocks, causing some kind of, some symmetry that ends up being life. I mean, think about the complexities of how the energy system is, like from magnetics to electricity. It's one of the most complicated things that we know about, other than life, like DNA. That's another complicated thing we can't explain. But it may be that just energy, literally pure energy interacting with other matter, creates life. And now we're getting to that point that we, like this article talking about two different species combining to build what just so happens to be what feeds most of the world, or at least partially, are tubers. Tubers are big in Africa, and they track it all back to Peru, right? So something was happening in Peru. We don't know what, but if you judge it by, later things that happened, it seems to be somebody was playing with all the way up until recent times. I could, cite stuff about 3,000 years ago where they have reeds from Egypt growing around Lake Titicaca. You have, for whatever reason, they have those horsefish, or what do you call them? What do you call them? Seahorses, right? They don't belong there. They belong in the ocean, but yet they're up there at Titicaca. But not only that, you find bananas and potatoes spreading around all over the place. So there's stuff that's over in Easter Island that could have only come from Peru. And this is before they were saying they were going across the ocean. So even back a million years, millions of years, interbreeding was happening between plants and animals that are unexplainable in the format of knowledge that we have now.
Yeah, I was trying to get to, I know Penny Kelly, and she'd done a lot of research on using electrified plates to change seeds back to their original state. And I don't know the exact amperage, voltage, frequency that they're putting in there, but the person she was studying under, they would put these seeds under two electrified plates, and they would come out with 16 ears of corn off of a plant back to the original. And I knew Robert Felix, and he talked about these massive changes of this magnetic field. Once it gets to a certain point, things are electrically changed beyond recognition, and this is where you get those jumps. The very next generation being born has a completely different DNA pattern in it. So it's not as if it takes a million years or 10 million years to go from a dinosaur to a bird. It's like wham, that thing happens the very next generation. Now the thing he was trying to determine was, if something was in the womb at that time, would it be affected enough to have its chromosomes change during the birth process? Like, let's say it was early in the gestation period, first 1 to 2 months, and the cosmic ray effect had come through. Would that be enough for the birth of that animal? And whatever animal it would be, the gamut of it, would it come out as a new species at that time if it was early enough in the gestation period? Obviously, if it's coming around, halfway or further on the third trimester for, humans or whatever it would be, animal that you want to look at, if it's further along on that development period, then it would come out as either stillborn or something along the old lineage that would be, and then everything from that point forward, that would be the last of its, what you consider species born, the very last one. And everything from that point forward, literally the very next day, anything that was born after that and any impregnation of any animal from that point forward would be a completely different species. And that's why, like you said, there's no constant where you're looking for this evolutionary chain and Darwin garbage that they talk about. It is evolutionary leaps. And it's all caused by depleting magnetic field and this slamming of galactic cosmic rays onto us, or the plant life, or the aquatic life, or the mammal life, whatever it is. It changes it instantly to the point where, are we going to have this great spiritual awakening? It's beyond that. We're going to become a new species with a new brain, literally, as this evolves through. Is this what the governments are planning? Are they trying to stay underground deep enough? And I know galactic cosmic rays, they penetrate all the way through the planet. They go all the way through. But is there some sort of shielding if they're 2 miles down, 5 miles down, 10 miles down, 15, 50 miles down beneath the crust? And some of you laugh and go, no, they can't even drill that deep because it's going to be too hot. Well, there's a lot of caverns that are that deep into our planet. So if you're 50 miles down, do you think the shielding of 50 miles of rock above you versus being on the surface during one of these events? Yeah, there's going to be a gigantically different outcome from that. But if they are doing simple experiments by running electric current through 2 plates on what you consider just heirloom seeds that you can buy anywhere, not the GM, but heirloom seeds, put them in an electrified state and then regrow those, and they come into a completely different thing, species, quantifiable difference on how many, stalks, tubers, like you're talking about with the potatoes. I mean, that's verifiable science as we speak right now. So can you imagine on a grand planetary scale where that takes us in terms of change? Oh my gosh, we're so far past, and I think we're going somewhere. These last weeks and months of massive floods, along with those 2 naked eye novas, really, really kind of set it home that we're into the galactic cosmic ray sea of change right now. And, Robert, he passed away. And shortly after COVID started, he passed away in I'm going to say 2021.
Rapid evolution.
Yeah. Were they silencing him, or did he, I'm not going to go there with that, but was he silenced on purpose knowing this was coming up, or did he make choices for interventions in his body? We had some interesting conversations. He was like one of the guys that I really looked up to way when I was early doing this Adapt 2030 channel. And he would talk to me and we'd send emails back and forth. And we spoke up at LeakCon that time. And he was there too. But I mean, the information he has right now would be so pertinent to explain everything that's happening in terms of cosmic ray energies coming from 2 naked eye novas. Like, he would be the world leader in understanding what this is. Him and Svensmark, these 2 guys are the 2 world leaders unequivocally of explaining what would be happening right now. But he is not here to explain it any longer. And it's just coincidental timing that he would pass so quickly in these years that we needed his knowledge so much, because he knows what is happening right this second. And, this happens with a lot of brilliant minds that can explain the time. Like, who's the guy who did the, who was doing all the testing where, I'm trying to explain that a little better.
Guy with
During the
soil.
COVID time. Yeah. The guy who did the PCR test, like, he passed away as well, right before this all occurred. It's the very same kind of circumstances where Robert passed just before we come into this cosmic ray phenomenon.
On top of that, I don't know if you remember, probably 15 years ago, one of the first types of gene modification techniques was to fire genes from another plant at almost light speed into another plant. And then the DNA would embed itself into that plant, changing it, becoming a genetically modified organism. So if you think about the two layers of how possibly this could go about, so you had fields of seeds, and it's intermixed with different species. The species are next to it. And then you get some kind of actual physical blast that penetrates the atmosphere into the sun. You would get equivalent to that experiment where genes from certain plants may fire over into some seeds that were still viable. And then when they grew, they would have extra genetics from this event that happened, like, I don't know, an airburst of an impact crater or something like that. There's various ways that that could happen. But then you have the other hand that's just direct genetic change directly from the particles entering into the organism and then changing the DNA strands by either damaging it or changing it in some way. And that's kind of why I brought that up. I mean, without genetic intervention, how do you explain two different plants exchanging a gene and then producing a new food plant that was never on the planet before that? It seems like there would be some kind of design, associated with that. But when you keep this idea in mind that it's very possible for your epigenetics, your regular genetics, all of this to change because of your environment, including the magnetic field, including cosmic rays, but not just that. Literally, the stuff that's going on, like, I don't know, all of your children's brains being rewired, or a fourth of the population, having issue with the big C there because of whatever it is that they're eating that's causing this. And then you can just, you start going down the lines of different things. Everyone has hemorrhoids now. But why is that? I mean, like,
I
the
don't
whole,
though, but I'm moving all the time though,
well,
so
that's part of it, but part of it is their diet. The diet's causing this irregularities in their digestive tract, and sitting on their butt. So you imagine these millions of people that are about to be replaced by AI are just about to break out into the world and then have all their health problems that are not going to be covered because the AI also determines that they led a sedentary life and didn't eat right. And then you got this one, chemotherapy reactivates dormant cells. The big C cells. So literally, people have been warning about this for decades, but now it's coming out in the mainstream that maybe not every remedy is worth its weight in salt. I'll just put it that way, because, we don't want to get in trouble for saying things. And then, things hidden in our products. We're always trying to buy clean products and stuff. Dental floss could be the next what to help
I know, I
out.
saw that. It scares me, huh?
Well, what's funny about this is a few years back, they found out a chemical coming off of dental floss was causing gum cancer. Right? So they discovered that there's this new way to get into the blood vessels and the, circulatory system of a human. Why not just put it in the products that they use daily? It reminds me of the first Batman movie. You remember the Joker had all his whole line of products, hairsprays, dental floss, toothpaste. You just had to use them in a certain combination to get a certain outcome. But my point being with all of this stuff here is, crazy things change genetics over time. Here's something to just blow your noodle up. 400,000 years ago, no, excuse me, 850,000 years ago, before out of Africa, our ancestors, now wrap your head around this because they don't explain it in the article. 850,000 years ago, that's roughly 750,000 years or 700,000 years before they say that our species came out of Africa. There were some people that they're calling in this article ancestors that were some kind of human hominid that was living in Europe almost 1 million years ago, and evidence that they were in this cave eating their toddlers or someone else's toddlers.
Now, see, if you wait a second, trace that back. So if you're going to go back 8 ice ages, and you're going to go, where's the middle of that ice age then? Or was it an interglacial? Because if you're subtracting 10,000 years every time you're going back, so if we go back now, it's 108,000 years to 118,000 years ago was the interglacial at that point. And then you subtract another 100,000 back. So were they at an interglacial period at that time, or were they in deep glaciation at 100 or 850,000 years ago?
I don't know, but just the simple fact that this article by itself debunks the out of Africa theory, mentioning
Everything. That's before the Anunnaki created humanity to mine gold in South Africa.
Well, you could call it.
If you believe that, just saying, if you believe
Yeah.
it, the theory's out there. That's all.
Well, according to this, these are 850,000-year-old Homo ancestors, which remember, there's not supposed to be Homo ancestors living in Spain. But there they are. And they were evidently having bad times, or maybe, it was ceremonial or whatever the reason. But you were talking about eating pets a while ago and, harsh environments on the earth. Here it is. This is
Spain's
why they're
pretty south. All you have to do is get across. And if you were depending on the glaciation period, that would have been a land bridge too. So you could have walked down to Africa. And if it was a glaciation period, Africa would have been incredibly wet and full of forests, even in what we consider bone dry desert now. On those kind of flip flops on the ice ages, Africa predominantly becomes much wetter.
Well, the whole idea is now we're finding hominids in Asia and Europe that are way older than these loosey ideas of all of a sudden an ape jumping out of a tree and walking like a human and then rapid evolution. But we were just arguing for rapid evolution, but it seems like just the form of the animals that are already here is what changes. Not really that dramatic, but enough where they can continue. Besides, everybody's building these massive telescopes, and we talk
And
about
massive underground bases or underground.
circular patterns, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're rolling with the Big Crunch thing, basically the opposite of the Big Bang, which would mean that everything would come back, right? So if you have a good
Singularity.
understanding. Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you have a good understanding of the science, what they're claiming is in the Big Bang, everything expanded and then, galaxies, suns, planets, all that formed. But what they can't explain is why that there's a speed of light limit in the universe, yet all of the outer reaches of the universe are expanding away from each other faster than the speed of light. So what this insinuates is if there's a big crunch, everything would come back in exponentially faster than the speed of light. So almost in an instant, if you reverse the idea, right? So almost in an instant, the universe ceases to exist.
That is so bizarre. That's like just a news crunch weirdo headline. Here, let me share you one with you and please remember to jump over to civilizationcycle.com and put your email in there. We'll get you the show notes for the things we talked about tonight. It's a one pager. I released it just before the show tonight. I try to do that before we go live. Put up those 10 bullet points and whatnot. So here's your lightning bolt and the record flash. It was this distance here. Like I would like to see where the magnetic field lines were running down this. I had this, ready for us when we were going to.
That's the tornado alley I was talking about.
That's tornado alley. That's exactly it. It's an amplified electrical conduit on our planet right here. So if you pegged it right there. What is that zone during spring and summer then? And then in the winter, it's blizzard zone, right?
Right.
So whatever happens with the amplification of weather patterns comes right through this. Like you can see it in the crust here on the amount of electrical activity, whatever form it takes. Lightning bolts, tornadoes, velocity of wind speeds, derechos, blizzards, hail size, whatever. It's all electrically driven. And this place is a hot spot for that. Absolutely a hot spot.
Yeah, and this is just north of those massive floods that just happened. And like I said, I feel bad because I checked the weather here. And whenever supercells are forming over my valley or just south to me in Mexico, I know, unfortunately, people in Texas, Oklahoma, and depending on which route it takes, because there's two different routes, right? There's one that ends up about in Tennessee and the other one ends up around Chicago, but they both start down here.
Yeah, and I'm over on Severe Weather EU if anybody wants to follow along. So they're just talking about updrafts and wind speeds, and this is where the hail formation comes from. So 30 to 50 meters per second, you have to convert over there to 108 to 180 miles or kilometers per hour, multiply by 0.6. So 100 kilometers per hour would be 60 miles per hour. So the meters per second converted over to kilometers per hour, because obviously it's a European site versus miles per hour. I just multiply everything by 0.6. All right, so what we were talking about electrically last time too in our oceans is there we go. This persistent cold rate off of Western Africa is not ceasing. This is why our hurricane activity this year has not been what it was forecast. And also, if you look up at the Maritimes in Canada, look at the cold blobs here. And look at the La Nina forming off of is what you consider regular off of South America to the west there, going out to Indonesia.
Right.
Electrically driven. So we are coming into a cooling phase based on this. If the ocean temperatures are dropping this rapidly and this persistently during the summer, what do you think is going to happen during the winter? And
Polar
especially in the
vortex.
southern area, look how far south that cold extends down from the equatorial bands. When the La Nina, normally it just follows that wave pattern, which you see the deep dark blue going off of, which is Colombia and that sort of area, Peru. But look how far down it's going, all the way down to Chile and thing. That's crazy how much deep cooling that is.
Right,
That's something very rare.
And I laugh at this stuff because last year we were talking about because it was really hot here in New Mexico last year. We were having triple digits from June, July, even into late August. We were having a big heat wave. And I was mentioning that, well, that happens every so often here. That's actually normal weather. Now, this year, they're still trying to convince us that it's record high temperatures in New Mexico. They're leaving out the fact that, like, what is it? It's July 31st, and right now where I live, it's 76 degrees. Quite cool. It's not burning up. It's not record breaking. Actually, that was all silliness that they keep telling you. But yet, when I watch the news, they're still trying to convince people that record high temperatures are happening. We're not even getting plus 100 temperatures. And I was looking at, what was it, 1936? Every single state, had above 100 temperatures. Some of them, a bunch of states had triple digits of like 110, 113, 114. And there were really no pockets of cool air that year. So this year we're going to have, I was just looking at that article you were showing, talking about the prediction of this big polar vortex possibility this year in the 25-26 winter. And the summer's already been real cool.
They're talking about wind speed here, though. So if you're looking at that on where the wind speeds are going to drive different systems here, up 60 north to 5 south, going below the equator. So you can see how the potentiality of this wind speeds coming up higher, which is going to drive different windier patterns, let's say. I mean, that's enormous off the coast here. The entire, West Coast is engulfed in that. But then if you look at the difference in the pressures is all you're basically at a pressure map here, talking about wind speeds and velocity here. So look at what's happening off Africa. That is going incredibly low. So this is dipping down. So how, what does this change that has not really been seen? Was it 1982 to 2023 on the averages there? Something is off tremendously here to have that much of a difference. You think it'd be more smooth and linear, or you might get at that 0.03 negative or the 0.03 positive, and generally somewhere in there, but not to the extremes on both, taking up an extraordinarily large part of the map on both of the extremes. That's literally off the charts. You're going on to the edge of the charts of measurability on both sides of this.
Right.
Like that's, you got to understand something extreme is coming, and perhaps governments have been planning for this. Perhaps this is what everybody's been planning for. And this is where we sit as we come into this massive ramp up. Perhaps that was the signaling, those two novas, that once those two, naked eye novas came, that they understood the light was finally here and the cosmic rays were here, that once you had this triple input of those two plus our sun and a weakening magnetic field, that was it. That was kind of, we hit that rollover point. And perhaps somebody knew on a forecastable model that these novas were going to flare at the same time, and we'd have this extraordinarily large amount of cosmic rays coming in. I don't know. There's too much preparation for such events that somebody knew in advance that these stacking set of circumstances were going to happen right about now, because they've been planning for this at least since 9/11. And I would say that was the guys to get all the money printing and obscure funds in and doing all these projects for the last 25 years. But then that scare of the ice age in the 1970s tripped some people off. And then the whole global warming excuse came for what we would see with the amplified weather patterns from right now. And now we've seen I really believe we're at some sort of rollover point, because everything's being so forced, as nothing is natural. It's like, being kicked. Like you would like put the spurs into a horse to get it to move. It's almost like that for our society right now. And people are starting to react, and they're not reacting in a positive way. It's like what we see behavior pattern wise is just off. And that's why I said in the very beginning of the program, if we as a collective consciousness can actually bend and morph the physical reality around us as soon as a certain number of people think or believe in a certain way, that everything else physically around us remorphs itself into, sometimes you wake up and it's like, wow, it's a new world I woke up into. Perhaps a certain amount of people all believe something, and then whoosh, it reformed the world we know. Or coming back into something like that, but in a more grand fashion of, 8 billion people all coming at. If we see something in the sky coming toward the planet, 8 billion people are going, oh no, our entire physical reality and construct is going to shift. I don't know. I'm trying to
It's
take
weird that they seem to love this fear model because, while
yeah.
people are afraid, they're not doing anything. They're just being afraid. They're perpetually thinking in their head about these scenarios and stuff. And I think that's literally why we're at the point where they're trying to control genetics, thought, everything. What are they going to do in the near future? Because you can already see examples on the earth of when you have millions of people that don't have jobs and they don't have anything to do and there's not that much food. Those are all kind of, hellhole scenarios that we think about in third world countries. But in the near future, right here in the United States, you're going to have millions of unemployed people, not because the economy is bad or any of that stuff. It's just simply because they're no longer needed in the workforce. It's all automated. And then you understand why they want you to go completely digital and get used to this idea of a universal basic income. It's just enough money to buy, the products while you sit around and wither away and disappear. I don't think that they really have to, get out there and physically reduce the population. That activity that caused those dominoes has already happened. It's already here. You see the results in, the fertility and birth rates around the world. You also see the results in the health of the populations around the world and the aging of the populations around the world. And now, we literally are in that throwaway economy where I'm going to say 70% of what people buy are unnecessary trinkets, devices, things that don't matter, fashions, clothes that are too expensive, things like that. That's what they're spending all of this disposable income. But wait till they get to a point where that $1,200 that they're going to offer you, or $1,300, $1,400, whatever it is, depending on the inflation, is only what you're allowed to buy. And then when the majority, the millions or even billions, are in that position, now you're stuck whenever they tell you that, hey, aliens are coming, hey, a volcano blew up, hey, yada, yada, this or that happened, we're going to have to ration you. So your $1,200, your $1,300, $1,400, whatever it is at the time, is only going to buy how much you're allowed to get, what's in stock, what they're allowing you to have a choice with. And there we are. I was going to bring that up too, because I've been out each morning watching that right before the sun comes up.
No,
Very
I was saying,
lively
if you're
last
going to go
night.
that direction, and you're thinking, hey, let's pop a couple bottles of wine, and watch the meteor shower out here. Another thing people should be doing is understanding how to distill and ferment, whether it be vinegars or whether it be, alcohols. That's such a valuable thing. And you just kind of described that. If you're able to buy a couple of packs of yeast with your universal basic income and find some
Right.
fruit on a tree somewhere and get some fresh water, you're going to be able to get some alcohol out of that, whether it be a small 7 to 9% effervescence with some champagne yeast, or if you want to take it up to 18% and then distill it off and run it into something on like a stripping run, whatever it is. So think about using that wisely as buying the base ingredients, because you could say, oh no, it's for bread, we want to sweeten our bread or something. Think about how to use the basic constituents, the base ingredients, to produce something else that is unobtainable for you. But anyway, I digress.
I
Thank you
think,
everybody tonight for
oh,
listening
yeah.
to us. Buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle if you like our content. And let me check before we leave here. Catherine Barlow talking about the ducks. Max, thank you. MAXX, 10 double espressos. Thank you so much. Stay strong, stay the course, and thank you. No, thank you for supporting the broadcast here. And everybody else, Catherine Barlow, someone, H. Johnson, 8225, Allison Bavej. And last week, just as we were signing off, Mr. Alex, 789. We're trying to bring in the information because we're all in this together. I don't have all the solutions. Ransom doesn't either. It's gonna be a combined effort to try to think our way through this. So thank you, everybody. And also civilizationcycle.com. Please remember, sign up for the show notes there. We'll send you a one-pager of the top 9 things we talked about that I thought were the most relevant during our conversation, so you can start conversations with others. And also, what's the news? What's happening right now? So Ransom,